everyone, welcome to another episode of the Promo Minds podcast interview series. Today we have an awesome guest. He is the host of the Building Wins podcast. He's a speaker. He's got over 4+ decades in the roofing industry, and he's learned to embrace the use of video as well as building a personal brand. So we're going to have some fun today. I really appreciate him coming on here. So please welcome to the show, Randy Chaffee.
Hey, Steve, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
Good. I'm doing great. It's great to be on. I've been looking forwards ever since we recorded a few weeks ago with you on my podcast, and we had such a great conversation that we decided we need to do that one again. And I'm just really excited to be here with you today. So thank you for the invite.
Well, I appreciate it. It was definitely a lot of fun, and the more that we've been getting to know each other, I find it so fascinating that coming from someone like yourself who has been in the industries for, like you said, 4+ decades, you've seen it all and you've had to adjust and pivot along the way. So the fact that you have embraced, the use of video and then the concept of personal branding, I think is tremendous. So I feel like I can learn a lot from you because even your name says the hybrid road warrior Randy. And maybe you can share a little bit about what that means for the audience, just to give a little bit of background on that.
Sure, I'll be happy to. It's funny. For years, I used just Road Warrior Randy. Excuse me, I have a little bit of a cold. Used Road Warrior Randy for years because that's been my background. 4+ decades of doing this crazy thing, which is a very nice way of saying old. Yeah. So the way this whole thing started, Steve, is as we were saying, we both have been, and most probably everybody on here are at heart old school road warriors, right? Pounding the pavement, uh, coffee and coffee and rolls and donuts in the morning, and pizza pie lunches and burger and brews in the afternoon, and bro hugging your buddies, and that's why I built my career of doing that, and loved it, and loved everything about it, and still do. But when but two things happen, and a lot of things happen for a reason. I can't even begin to explain, and I'm tired of saying that C word, COVID, right? But that whole world, when that happened, uh, I feel like that was destined for me to make a change because I was forced to when I couldn't travel. And that's the way I've built my career, is airplanes and airports and rental cars and up and down the highway. And all of a sudden I couldn't, once it became obvious that it wasn't going to be just a couple weeks, it was going to be a long, long time. I said, how am I going to be with my customers? That's not what I do. That's not how I keep relationships with the current customers. That's not how I built relationships with new customers. And I had an opportunity through a mastermind group to get more involved with video, to where we would video each other every single day to the group. Never could type it. We had to video it to get ourselves used to more of a modern day a way of doing things. So I had a little bit of a comfort level, and had guested at that point in time on a couple of 3 podcasts, probably maybe a couple more. And I said, you know what? Maybe I can host my own show as a way to be in front of my customers. And as I'm doing that, Steve, I started doing a lot of other things. I use video on a lot of things. I do video. I post a video or 2 or 3 every single day, just about 24 or probably 365 days a year. I probably post a video 350 of those days. So, and we can talk more about what I do with that and why if you want later. But I started doing something that was really unique. And this is where this hybrid part came from, is I started taking and recording videos on BombBomb, which is just a platform that I used and still do some. And I would send if I'm going to send a quote to a customer because I can't go see them, I would literally print a copy of the quote off and send them a video, hold the quote up and say, I'm emailing this, see the attachment, but right here, line A, like 16, 23 and 34, flip the page, and 75 are the 4 items that we talked about that you're the most interested in. And I would send that and it would come up as a thumbnail as opposed to a PDF, so that as soon as they opened it up, it's like, here's Randy's face with this little thumbnail, little arrow on it, right? Everybody recognized that was a video. They started poking there going, and I don't know how many calls I get. I've never got a video from anybody before. That's amazing, because now all of a sudden they knew me more personally, right? Than they would have by just a phone call. And so then I started doing that with text. I would send guys a text all the time. If I just thinking about them, hey, how you doing? How I just wanted to get back around and make sure that quote looked good to you. I know you thought about an order probably next week. We're already into next week. Anything I need to do from my end, whatever the case was. And I would literally pick up my cell phone and do a 20, 30, 40-second video and fire it off to them. Two things happened with that. Is one, the response was incredibly huge and positive, because they weren't getting that from anybody. They was like, what is this? This is just, I've never seen this, but I kind of like it. And so then, and I really am getting to my point about the hybrid in a long roundabout way. So I was this road warrior guy for a long, long time. We had a point where, as we started getting to where we could travel some, remember we had those a couple of times where also we could travel a little bit, and then we couldn't again, and then we could, and then we couldn't. When I'd get out traveling, I started talking to a lot of people in my world that do what I do, competitors as well as just people in my industry. And there's two schools of thought that was coming into play. The first school was, we're just going to wait until we go back to normal, back to the old way. Well, my first thought is, what in the heck is normal? You're right. I don't know what that means. And secondarily, I didn't think we needed to go back to whatever your normal is, because some of these new things are working. But then, Steve, there's also the other side. And I listened to some pretty well-known people, which I won't name, but that, well, you're never going to get on an airplane and travel anywhere again. That'll never happen. That is over. We are going to be 100% virtual, setting in our jammies and throwing on a shirt and in a virtual background, and never going to leave home again. I didn't buy that either, especially in our industry, the roofing and building material world. We're pretty hands-on, right? We like to be with each other. So I started figuring out, how do I hybrid this thing into doing it both ways? How do I be out with my customers when I want to, when I can, and when it works, and when they need me? But how can I be with them every single day? Because when I'm traveling the old way, if you will, I might not see anybody for weeks, sometimes months in between, trips, depending on where in the country they are and I am. You'll have a phone call here and there, or an email back and forth. But I started finding out that I can engage with you via social media every day, and sometimes multiple times a day. And the beautiful part of that is it's at your convenience, Steve, not at mine. You can choose to partake in whatever I had to say, or you can choose not to. You can do it at 3 in the morning because you woke up and couldn't go back to sleep. You could do it at 2 in the afternoon when you're taking a break for coffee, or again, not at all. So I'm non-invasive with that approach, right? But I'm always there. And so that's where I coined the hybrid Road Warrior Randy, just added that to a tag that I used for a long time, which was just Road Warrior Randy, and never looked back. So everything I do today is from a hybrid concept, I guess, if that makes sense. That was a long version to all that. I apologize.
No, it's good. It's good to get the full explanation on that, because it's pretty easy to say, yeah, one day just decided to start using video and just haven't looked back with that. I just, adapted both. And one thing that I found doing these interviews is that, especially, obviously going back to the pandemic, so many people, pretty much everyone, had to adjust the way that they did
Right.
business, especially in the B2B space. Or like you said, if you're selling something across the country, and you were used to traveling to that part to actually meet face to face, or maybe doing a live event, all of a sudden that all adjusted. Actually, the guy that I interviewed most recently, They do HR and health and safety for small to medium-sized businesses. So,
Mm-hmm.
and he said when the pandemic hit, they were used to doing lead generation from throwing seminars and giving, like, educating people on how they can stay compliant with their business and all the up-to-date legislation, all that stuff. And then obviously they would pull leads from that, build relationships. And they found, once the pandemic hit and things were shut down, there were no live events.
Right.
Well, what are we going to do now? Well, they went from a seminar to a webinar. So they went online with it and basically did the same sort of format, only now they could reach a wider audience because you didn't have to be in a set territory or within, an hour drive or whatever was convenient for people. Now, like you said, you could be in your PJs, have your morning coffee and fire up the laptop and sit down and learn some information. And they were able to actually build their business even larger as a result of that. So there have been, with the significant shift, like you can see that's working. And so why, like you said, why would you want to go back to whatever normal was before?
Hey guys, if you're looking for a great book on leadership and becoming a person of influence, well, that is the title of this book by John C. Maxwell, Becoming a Person of Influence. It's written with Jim Dornan of the Amway Corporation. Now, don't let that faze you because it is a gem. I have read this book over and over again. I absolutely love it. I actually have a spare copy that I like to give to people. And also, I've tabbed out my copy just so I can go back to all the different tidbits found within this book. So check it out, Becoming a Person of Influence by John C. Maxwell and Jim Dornan. All right, let's get back to the show.
So, Randy, maybe you could share a little bit about or provide a little bit more detail into what it is you do, like what your role is, just so people have a little better understanding on where you're coming from.
Sure. Well, I, for the last about 35 years, have been a manufacturer's rep, or in Canada, you'd call us agent, same idea. In the States, we refer to ourselves as manufacturer's reps, but so rep or an agent in the metal roofing and post-frame building industry. So I rep manufacturers throughout Ontario and Northeast U.S., New York State, and the Great Lakes, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, is my general. And I do a little bit in Florida as well, since I live there a good part of the year. And so I rep manufacturers. I have 5 major ones and 2 or 3 others that I represent. My base customer is going to be either the post frame building or pole barn building supply house, or probably like my largest target customer, if you will, is the roll formers, the guys that roll form or stamp metal roofing. And so I supply them with all their component parts, fasteners and vent material enclosures, barn door track, equine products, some insulation products, sealants, those kind of things. So any component parts that go into the roofing or post frame building industry. So that's what I've done for a long, long time. I got my start with my dad when I was real young, being the gopher on the job site, carrying 2x4s and picking up nails and screws and going to get that and going to get guys lunch and whatever else when I was like 15, 16 years old. So I've been grew up in this industry. Spent a little bit of time as a purchasing agent and product manager for a decent sized lumber chain throughout Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, where I was responsible for buy, sell on most everything in the post frame related industry. So it's an area I've been in basically my whole life. And I enjoy it. I love it. It's what I do. Know it pretty well. And so now, my day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month goal is to continue to service existing customer friends, build new customer friends. And I do that not by just selling, because I hate the term sales in general, because, and I know this gets probably beat around a lot sometimes by a lot of the gurus today, but I think it's really true. You got to quit selling and you got to start helping. And if you're that, again, a lot of different phrases get tossed out there, Steve, but if you become the trusted advisor, you take an interest in what your customer needs and you help them become profitable. And hopefully that will, at the end of the day, involve some of the products that you're involved with. But I try to help them not only just supply them a product at a price, because that's pretty transactional, right? And while I could give you the dog and pony all day about any of the products I have, and I'm pretty convincing, about all the little reasons why I'm better than everybody, right? But at the end of the day, there's a whole lot of good people out there that do what I do. So the key comes into play, I think, is do we develop a relationship? Because even in B2B, which I operate in, and I think you operate in, it's still people to people at the end of the day. It's still some guy with the position of selling, whatever you call yourself, and somebody in the position of buying, whatever they call themselves, right? It's still two people. And there has to be a trust and a belief level there between those two people. So I work really hard to develop that. And hopefully at the end of the day, I'll have a answer that will help them be more profitable. And secondarily, as a, my rep agency is called Source One Marketing. We do a lot of marketing too. I'll assist anybody in the sell through, not just, okay, I got, there's 440 pieces on a pallet. How many pallets would you like? And here's the price. Again, that's very transactional. If we're gonna get in bed together on this product line.
The suspense there. We've been having a lot of technical difficulties here. Hopefully Randy comes back here. There he is.
Well, apparently the good news is that the little message just said that we're having difficulties, but it's not your fault, it's ours. So at least StreamYard's admitting. That makes me feel way better.
I was I don't know if you saw that, but at the beginning when you first started answering that question, I was listening to it, and then all of a sudden my phone went off and it like took away my my speakers.
Oh.
So I was like, first off, I thought I had my phone on Do Not Disturb, so that was the first problem. And then having it connected to both the phone and my computer, it just automatically goes to the call if someone calls me. So I took care of that.
Okay.
Came back in, and you were right in the middle of sharing. Not to make it transactional. The use of sales is, people don't want to be sold, right?
Right.
Right. And then I'm trying to remember what you were.
Well, I think where I was going with that, yeah, Steve, I think where I was going is you're exactly right. People, it's a funny thing about all of us as consumers, and you're a consumer at whatever level you are, outside of maybe a $1 trillion governmental sealed bid thing, right? But everybody is still it's still a B2B, it's still a person to a buyer, and nobody wants to be sold anything. That's a very negative connotation. None of us like that. None of us like to feel like we're sold, but we love to buy stuff, right? And in the B2B world, we want to buy answers to our problems. We want to buy solutions, because we're not in the consumer world. It's a little different, because a lot of stuff you buy because it's a want, or just something. Hey, it's a want. It's just something I want to have this. In the B2B world, typically, I need to have this product or service to be able to profit my business more. So what kind of a problem, or what kind of a solution to a problem are you going to resolve for me, Randy, for us to move forward? And I think if we develop that relationship and get it out of the transactional, because transactional relationships are a killer to the sales side of things, right? Because now all we are is a number. And if the only reason you and I do business because I have the best number today, that means that I'll have it maybe next time and maybe the next time after, but only until the next guy walks in with a little bit better price. And that's all that means, right? And then that's not a long-term situation that works well for us in sales. I would caution folks that are on the buying side to don't allow your sales guys, whatever title they have, to allow it to go transactional either. Because people that do what I do can get that way. It's commonly called a lot of times commission breath, right? It's like all you can see is that commission you're going to make off that sale. And we can turn it into transactional just as well. And I feel like if you're going to really do the job for your customer, you always have to be in that position. And I'm not the first one that's ever said this. I'll claim it if nobody does, but always be in a position of walking away. And what I mean by that, I guess, is if we're not right, if we're not the right fit, then I should allow you, Steve, to back out of this deal and not feel pressured into doing this if this is not a good fit for the two of us, right? And because if we don't, all I did is turned it into transactional, which, just like we said a minute ago, once you figured out it was transactional from my end, sooner or later you're going to walk away, right? Because it wasn't a good deal for you. So let's just decide that right now. Let's make sure it's right and work our way into it from the right standpoint. And I think if you come at it that way from both sides of the table, then I think you build that ultimate win-win that we all look for. And I think it's important that we do that, because if you don't, if there's always one side winning and one side losing, the side that's losing is always going to walk away sooner or later. Whether it's you as a consumer or me as a supplier, if this is not a good deal for me and my manufacturer, I'm going to stop at some point. We're just not going to do this anymore. And as it would be with you as the buyer. So I think it's really vitally important that we strive for that real old school way of thinking. But is this a deal that makes sense for both of us? And I think the only way you get to that way as a sales guy is, do I listen to you? Do I look at what your situation is? Do I have an interest in helping you if you need the help and if I am the best source for you? And I think that comes into play whether you're selling products and like I do, but it also comes into play if you're a roofer or a contractor. Are you the right fit for this customer? Do you need every job? Probably not. There are jobs that probably don't fit your area of expertise. Maybe the numbers aren't right. Maybe there's a lot of reasons that come into play why this is just not the right deal. We get fired as a salesperson enough, right, by a customer. And there's times that we might need to fire a customer, as in not even hire them to begin with, so to speak, right? This is just not going to work, Steve. I don't think we're the right guys for you. Nothing wrong with saying that, and you gain a lot of respect from the buyer if you do that. And so that's one of the things that I found over time is to really dig in early and often with asking those open-end questions. What is it that you need? What's going on? What's the pain points? What's happening with your current supplier? What kind of issues are you happening? Because it's a funny situation. Is if we talk long enough, and I'm talking a lot right now, but if we're talking long enough and often, and I ask open-end questions and keep my mouth shut and listen, you're going to tell me exactly what I need to know in order to help you make a buying decision, hopefully with me, right? You're going to tell me exactly what you need if I will just listen to what you have to say.
Hey guys, if you're into hiking at all, I highly recommend subscribing to my YouTube page, Steve Leslie Hikes. That's Steve Leslie Hikes on YouTube. I have a lot of content on there from some of the crazy hikes that I've been on, including Angel's Landing in Zion National Park. And it'd be really cool to connect on there. So please check me out. Thanks.
You know, like you said, you could do a dog and pony show all day, but you want to be able to communicate the value, not just in your product, but in yourself. And part of that is having that understanding on, you know, you're not comparing apples to apples. one of the things that I've said to people in the past is like, um, you know, cheaper is oftentimes more expensive.
Right.
And I'll get the question like, well, what do you mean? And I'll say, you can go to Walmart and buy a pair of running shoes for $30, but in 6 months, you're going to have to go back and buy another pair. Whereas you could go to a place like Sport Check or Mark's Work Warehouse or whatever and buy a pair of running shoes that are probably 3 or 4 times the price, but they're going to last you 2 or 3 years and it's going to feel like you're walking on a cloud.
Well, exactly. Yeah, because the experience, not only the money part, and that's a great point, Steve, but also the experience level that you'll have. You'll be hating those Walmart specials for $30 every single day you go out running or walking. When your shins hurt, your knees hurt, your feet hurt, right? And you'll be thanking yourself for going to the better brand, better product, better quality every single time you go out and use them. So you're spot on, right? It's value that's important, and value has to take in price. Like I like to say sometimes, I don't drink much. I'm from Michigan originally and Florida now, so we still say pop wherever we go. A lot of people call it soda, but I don't drink much pop, but if I do, I want Coke or the Coke Zero, not Pepsi. Not anti-Pepsi, just I like Coke products better. So if I go into a convenience store for some weird reason, there's a 12-ounce Coke here for $1 and a 12-ounce Coke over here for $1.29. Of course, I'm going to make it transactional because I'm getting the exact same product. I'm not going to pay 29 cents more. That's just silly. With that said, though, $1.29 for the Coke and $1 for the Pepsi, I'll still pay the $1.29 because I want the Coke, right? So I am not transactional when it comes to pop, for example, because I don't know, there's probably a limit somewhere. There's $5 difference. I'd probably drink the Pepsi or not drink anything, right? But I'm just saying, I think we, and that leads me to another point that I think we do as salespeople, use that broad term, way too much at all levels, is we make assumptions for our customers as to what they want or can afford. And that is a number one mistake. Just because you don't see the value, and that's a problem in itself. If you don't see the value of your product, whether it's in my case, mostly products, but some services, but if I don't believe in what I do, it's hard to sell it. And it's hard to sell it with confidence. And it's hard to ask for what I want for it and stay firm with that's what I need because this is what it's worth and here's why, Steve, right? But if I make the mistake of pulling in and I've a lot of experience not in-home sales so much myself, even though I did years and years ago, but I remember working in the lumber yards years ago before I became a purchasing agent. I did a little sales for a while, and big mistakes sometimes I see these sales guys make. They'd see some guy come in, and they'd made a determination that they're just not going to spend a bunch of money. They just somehow magically knew this by the way they looked, by whatever, whatever they used to make that determination. And some of those became some of my best sales because I didn't already prejudge what this person wants. I didn't put my fact that maybe I think this widget, whatever it is too expensive. Maybe you don't think it's too expensive. Maybe you think it's perfectly in line. And I think as salespeople, a lot of times we lose our confidence level. We lose our ability to present the product the way it ought to be presented in the light it ought to be presented in, because we make determinations on what this customer will or won't do. And I think that happens a lot in in-home sales, because I know a lot of people that do very, very well in in-home sales, like, going out and selling, Mr. and Mrs. Smith a metal roof this evening, right? They pull in and they'll make determinations. Look at their car, they'll look at their house, they'll look at whatever. Oh, they can't afford my roof. Well, you've already lost because you're going to portray that to your customer, and or you're not going to do and give them the full diligence of what you should be doing to help assist them through, because you have no clue what they can do just based on how the property looks. I guess, okay, I suppose there's some things to be said. If you're selling $400,000 roofs and it's a $30,000 house, then probably that's not going anywhere. I get that, but you know what I'm saying. A lot of times we make predeterminations, and then we sell that negativity to our customer subconsciously throughout that whole process. So stop that. If they want to spend the time and they've been pre-qualified and it makes sense, because in all areas we qualify customers. If we don't, we should. I know in the installation world, obviously, if you're not pre-qualifying, personal opinion, that's you're wasting a lot of time, because there's got to be some pre-qualification steps, some checkoffs, or it makes no sense to spend your 3 hours out there with them, right? But the same thing happens in my world as a supplier. I sell to certain types of customers. I will work with installers all day long. They can call me, we'll build relationships, but I don't sell them directly. I sell to wholesalers. So if you call me and I make the determination, I'm going to make the determination up front. Do you have a tax ID? Do you have a place of business? What do you do? Because it would be silly for me to fly to Maine and spend 3 days and get out to your place and find out that I can't sell you if I wanted to. So you do need to pre-qualify, but don't predetermine whether, if they meet the qualifications of doing business, so to speak. Don't predetermine whether they're going to be a good fit for you until at least you get into that first interviewing conversation, right? And find out what they need, where they're coming from. Because I just think you cut off a lot of opportunities that maybe you shouldn't have, if you just be a little more open-minded.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think what some people are guilty of doing, like you said, is the prejudging thing without even really doing any pre-qualifying. And I find if you're selling something that you personally might not be in the position to buy, all of a sudden you have these excuses on why it's not going to work for anyone. And
Right.
you touched on that in the beginning. Like that's not going to work. That's a recipe for disaster for you.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I told someone in recent months when I was met with some of these mindsets, we can also look back and say we essentially doubled our money supply like 3 or 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not a shortage of money. They are printing more and more every single day. It's just the divide between some people have it and some people don't. And you have to realize who your target market is, who your target audience is, and to think, okay, is what I'm selling, will they actually want to buy it? And again, if you can't distinguish that, then you're in the wrong industry.
Exactly. Great point. You're spot on. And that is a mistake you got to guard against on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
So I'm curious. We've had we've had a lot of technical challenges. I try to conduct this interview, but we seem to be on a good run now. One of the things that I wanted to ask you before was how, in your 4+ decades, how have you seen the industry change in the way that you build relationships and connect with people from, like, I guess, how did you start out? How did you start making those connections, building those relationships, building your business, and how has that changed over the years? And what are you seeing now?
And that's a great conversation, Steve, because I'm going to say tremendous change and zero change at the same time. See, person-to-person connections are still important, and they still always will be there. and I think they're just as important today as they ever were, even though I think that's starting to be diluted a little bit with I call it the nanosecond mindset that people develop, including myself, when it comes, I think all the social media stuff, there's pluses and minuses to everything, right? I do a lot on social media. I'm a big believer in it. I believe it's a real force multiplier. But what it does do is it does tend to negate in a certain way that personal connection. So we have to be quicker, faster, and more responsive with our communications to the people that we're talking to. Because not 30 years, no, we didn't do any of this 30 years ago. 10 years ago, if I would do a 30-minute long dissertation about a product and why you'd ought to buy the product from me. And because it was new and the general audience was not tempered by everything that they see and bombarded, I guess is a better word, every day, they would probably watch it. Nowadays, you better be like the quick, fleet-footed. It's kind of like in NFL. My Lions just won last night. I'm going to guess your Lions too. But anyway, the look at the linemen of today versus the linemen of years ago. They're still big, but they're not as big sometimes. They're a little quicker, they're a little faster, a little more fleet-footed because it's a whole different type of offense, right? Generally. And I think it's the same thing with what we're doing. We still need to develop the relationships. We need to let you know that we are real people that want to solve a problem for you. But we need, and the opportunity to do it on a regular basis is much greater now than it ever was. Because in the past, if you were a potential customers of mine, Steve, we would have a phone conversation or two. We'd never see each other. Wouldn't know what each other looked like. Sooner or later, you'd invite me up, or I'd decide to ask if I could come up and spend a whole lot of time and a whole lot of money and finally get up there to try to figure out whether there's even really any opportunity or not. And at the end of the day, we might not even like each other that well once we got together, right? And not that you can't do business, but that is a detriment. In today's world, we're so far ahead because by the time, if you were somebody that was in a position to buy product from me right now, you already know me 1,000x more than you would have known me 10 years ago, right? We've had virtual conversations. You follow what I do on social media. You know what I think. You know I have kids and grandkids and great-grandkids. You know what I like to do on the weekends. So you develop this friendship, this relationship much quicker and much more in depth than you would by just stopping in for an hour and a half conversation, which the first 20 minutes is you show me your office and your warehouse, and we spend 20 minutes talking about this, and then the next 20 minutes you're trying to get me out the door because you've had enough already, right? I know. So the reality is there's so many more opportunities in today's world if we use virtual to develop relationships so that there are no more cold calls. I don't know the last time. Yeah, okay, that's not true. I'll do a cold call here and there. There's probably still in this industry, but the number of cold calls that I will do, if I do what I think I ought to be doing right, are very small compared to what they used to be. Because I'm going to, if you're a potential customer, first thing I'm going to do is follow you on LinkedIn. I'm going to invite you to follow me. I'm going to see where else you are. I'm going to invite you to follow me there. I'm going to follow you there. And if you can sow, we said this earlier, so inobtrusively, if that's a word, I can let you know day after day things I'm doing, things I think, what I'm about. I'm kind of a nice guy, maybe I'm weird, I'm goofy, I'm quirky, whatever it is I happen to be. And I kind of might know something. I've been around for a while, and I think this guy represents some pretty good products too. I can tell you all that without telling you all that. And then all of a sudden, when we get together, it's almost like I walk up to your door and you're going to open the door and say, Randy, how you doing, buddy? Right? Because we're pals already, even though we've never met. And so it goes such a so far in expediting the process to getting where we ultimately want to be, which is you need to buy some product, right? And still not lose the fact that there does have to be that transaction at some point. You need stuff, whatever that is. I need to sell some stuff, whatever that is, right? I mean, I'm not ever saying we do all this for fun, but we expedite quickly the time frame that it takes to get from A to Z, right? From A, I don't even know who this guy is, to Z. Man, I want to buy from this dude. I don't even care if the price is exactly where my other guys are. I just like the guy. I like what he's doing. I like his product. I trust him. The speed at what we can get there is much quicker, and I don't have to try to come in and convince you and tell you all these great things that I've done and what a great guy I am and how awesome and beautiful my company is, because you're going to already have seen that 500 times before we finally get together. Which, spinning that back to what you and I talked about off air, the beauty of all that is, if you follow anything that I do, which I know you do, we follow each other, you'll see that well north of 80% of posts that I do a day, a week, a month, don't have anything to do with product. I post product, and I will post product because I do want to sell product. I'm not going to lie. I'm a sales guy at the end of the day. Okay, I kind of need to sell something. But I spend more time allowing you to get to know me. I follow what you do, so I get to know you. And I think a thought process I have with like contractors and builders is, I see a lot of builders that do a great job with this beautiful new roof, right? They put up. That's good stuff. But not if that's the only thing you're doing, because that's one of 14 really nice looking roofs this homeowner's seen in the last week or two, if they're actively in the mindset of I need to look for a new roof, right? Every time a builder pops up a roof someplace on social media, they're looking at it. Oh, honey, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? No, I don't like that at all. I don't like that. I don't want this. I want that. They're starting that decision-making process, even if they don't know it. So that's important to do. But again, I would suggest to any of your audience is, if they want to really, really work in social media and use that as a force multiplier, because I've wrote some articles. I do some writing for some trade magazines, and I love the talk, and I love to write about visibility equals opportunities. The more visible you are, the more opportunities will just find you, that you don't have to go find them. So if you're letting the potential customer at this point, let's say you're a roofer, they want to see the nice project, they want to see the beautiful work they've done. Man, number one, get a testimony if you can. Everybody wants to see mom and pop standing there arm in arm going, oh my God, Steve was the greatest ever. He cleaned up the site every day. Just everything he said went perfectly. We just would recommend him to anybody. Isn't it? Don't you agree, honey? And right? People love that, number one. But number two, I also want to know what you did. Again, if this all comes back to your comfort level. But I want to know Steve as a person. I want to know what you do, what you're out there thinking, what you're talking about, funny little story, anything that I can get where I get a feel like I kind of like this guy. I kind of trust this guy, because as we talked about earlier, on or off the show, but people, given all things being somewhat equal from who they like, know, and trust, right? They want to like you. They want to know who you are. And they want to be able to trust you. And they get to trust you because they get to know you. And so it's important that we do that. And so I would suggest, and I use the 80-20 rule, and I don't use that as in I don't keep score, but I can tell you that, and that may or may not be right for a specific person's business. I've talked to a few people that's called and asked me questions, and I've kind of given my opinion on what I think based on what they do. But I think that a good combination somewhere of like in the manufacturing world, I want you to see the people at the plant making this widget, right? I want to see you seeing the Christmas party when they presented the owner with a gift, right? And everybody's applauding and shaking hands, because all that does is lend credibility as I'm actually buying from some other people that are kind of just like me. And I like these folks. These guys have got it together. Because again, if you don't, and all you see is this beautiful roof or this beautiful screw in my case or whatever, okay, there's a point to where, yeah, whatever. That's not real sexy, right? Okay, that's nice, but I've saw 15 other roofs today that look just as nice on a video, right? How do I know? But man, I did like this guy, and I really noticed how happy Mr. and Mrs. Smith was with Steve Leslie. You could tell by watching that little video, that testimonial, that they really enjoyed their relationship with him. And that goes a long ways. And every time you do those sort of things, I'd heard this one time, and I may not get it right, but I love the theory is, if I tell you how good I am at something, I'm bragging. If you tell somebody how good I am, that is a testimonial, right? That becomes a fact. That's hard to dispute. And so I think it's important to get more of those people talking about what you're doing, because every time you do that, and every time you share people's jobs and processes and so forth, why it's important is make sure you get to buy in from the customer. Obviously, you want to ask them if you can. Ask them to share it out to their friends, because everybody wants to do that. Everybody wants to see their beautiful new roof all over Facebook and places, right? And everybody likes and shares and all that sort of thing, and everybody knows how that works today. But the visibility, equal opportunity is huge there. And that becomes a real force multiplier, because now you're having people calling you up saying, hey, Steve, I saw your Facebook things, and I saw that you did a job for Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and man, they were really happy. That customer's 90% sold already, isn't he? Because he's called you because he saw what you did, versus just a typical lead generation where he's done wherever he's done it, and he's got 15 different people calling him, right? And you're just sorting through your lead generation process, whatever it is. I'm not saying those aren't good. I'm just saying I think it's a better quality lead when that guy goes, I've seen this is the 5th time in the last week I've seen this Steve guy. And I think we need to call him, because why do you think you need to call him? I don't know. Does nice work, and these people all seem to be happy, and he seems to be everywhere. I mean, not everybody can be wrong, right? I think you generate a real subconscious psychology there that takes very little time to do. It's not that hard. And I'll have guys ask me, Steve, man, you spent a lot of time on this, Randy. Yes and no. One, if it's important and valuable, it's worth spending some time on. But like opportunities are everywhere if you become an opportunity mindset thinker, right? We've all heard the story of, and I tell this story my way, but I remember my wife and I, first Buick LaCrosse she bought. Never had a Buick ever in my life, let alone a LaCrosse. This goes back 10, 15 years ago. And it's a really funny thing. As soon as we bought it, she bought it, we recognized how incredibly influential we were. Because you know what? Everybody had Buick LaCrosses. They all started buying them overnight. No. What happened is we started seeing Buick LaCrosses everywhere. Why? Because we had one now, and now we're in a mindset of seeing Buick LaCrosses, right? So I think the same thing works with opportunities. If you're in a mindset of, well, life sucks, and the economy's bad, and money's expensive, or there is no, whatever the reasons that we bounce through life, that's exactly what you're going to find, is no opportunity. But if you're in an opportunity-seeking mindset, you're going to find opportunities everywhere. And I think it's the same thing with looking for good quality leads, or I should say, if with putting together social media programs. If you're in the mindset that I want to share, I want to be a sharer, I want to be out there with people, then you'll find things to post and to share all day long. I'm going to asterisk this with one thing. I would probably never post something just to post it because I haven't had anything in 3 days, and geez, I better post something, and then you go dumb, right? And you post something that makes 0 sense. But the only caveat to that, Steve, and I'm talking a lot about this, but I get passionate about this. We're in such a nanosecond world that I've had people say, you do a lot of guest appearances like this. I host my show. I do a lot of video. Do you ever go back and watch anything that you did? And I said, absolutely, positively never. When you post this show, I will watch the first 13 seconds and then I'll be done. I will never watch the whole show because I never watch myself, because I'm too busy going on to the next thing. This is already history, right? You put it out there. Other people that don't know us will watch it, and there's going to be a value to that, right? One, I don't want to second guess myself and sit here and go, I shouldn't have done that, or why did I move my hands that way, or boy, I did stupid, or I coughed when I shouldn't have. All that does is put you into a mindset that you can't be free and normal. But there is something to be said sometimes. Well, you don't want to go stupid, but done is better than perfect in the world of video. People want organic. They don't want it with the director and that little thing that they snap and you got 12 producers and camera and makeup. No, they want organic, real Steve and Randy, right? So it's easy to give it to them. Just grab the phone, say something for 30 seconds about what you're thinking about something. Post something that you thought was interesting. I've been posting a lot of stuff lately. You've probably seen, I'm big into barns. I love old barns. I follow 5 or 6 of these photographers that do old barns. I don't post them all there. I'd be barned all day long. But if I see one that I really, really enjoy, it's just one more. If you happen to like barns, you're going to go, oh, that's cool. That's really neat. But what'd you do? You thought of Randy again, right? Just for a brief second.
Yep.
And if you hated the post they did, as long as I'm not being stupid, or which I hope would never do. If you don't go stupid, whatever that means, it just wasn't your best. Big deal, because you know what? Nanoseconds. By the time you're still thinking about, boy, did I look stupid, that person, if they happen to be spending some time on social right now, have went through 427 more videos since they don't even remember, right? They just don't. So that would be my thing to people that are either don't know how or are afraid to do it. The most popular, best trending videos out there on any of the TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or any of them are the most in the world of professional videography, are the least professional, right? Because nobody cares about that. I just want to see what Billy Bob's thinking. So, and just do it. Just start doing it. It'll make a big, big, big difference, I think, in your little local community, your area that you market in, because people now are going to know who you are. They're going to know you're a real person, and that's what they're going to respond to, more than just a product or just a pretty roof. Still got to do that stuff. You got to make sure they know that's what you're doing. But I find that my engagement with a product post is much better the less I do. Because if you get more of me just as Randy and whatever goofy, stupid thing he wants to talk about for the next 40 seconds, when I do post something, you're more likely to go ahead and look at it because, well, I don't know, I'm going to look at this quick. I know he's into something to do with this roofing stuff. I'm not exactly sure what he does, but I kind of like the guy. I'm going to go ahead and look at that and see. Versus I'm just one of 1,000 other people that they might have saw today talking about some widget, right? So I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but that's my take, and that's the long version of that.
More from the Promo Minds podcast coming up shortly. Promo Minds. Promote your brand, transform your business.
No, there was a lot to unpack there, but I will say one of the key components that I picked up on that was how you described utilizing the virtual world, social media, videos, in order to connect faster and at a fraction of the cost, with your prospects and your clients. But then also too, it's like an online resume, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're constantly putting out your opinions, your thoughts, your likes, and engaging in that way. And one of the jokes I was going to make at the start of what you just said there was, you were congratulating the Lions on their victory, and I I gotta say, I am Detroit is not my team, but so I don't know who they played yesterday. But I was
Well,
gonna say they just you probably just canceled out a lot of Rams fans from previous week.
well, the good news is that the Rams fans are typically in an area outside of my geographical territory. So, oh well.
There you go.
But what's funny is the team they beat yesterday was the Buccaneers, which has sort of become my adopted
Okay.
second team because I live about 2.5 hours south of Tampa. So, I was a little,
Yep.
but at the end of the day, I still want Detroit to win. But it's sports. Sports is one of those common denominators amongst so many people, right? There's so many
Yep.
great sports adages you can use, but yeah, it's but you just hit on something a second ago that I thought was very important, is the amount of you can sort through so many things from a timing standpoint. If you think about it, and I don't know what the ratio is, and it probably varies from industry to industry, I'm sure, and territory to territory, and a lot of other factors. But what is the amount of time it takes for an average contractor to find a lead, qualify a lead, visit the lead, and if it's not a same day close scenario, they're going to go quote, they're going to go back, they're going to go back, and they're going to back and forth. How much time is put into that to have it not become a deal anyway? Now that's part of the game. But what if you could cut that in half by expediting that process, by not having to go through that? I need to get comfortable with who this Steve guy is that's calling on me before I'm even willing to spend $46,000 on a roof, right? What if they're already comfortable with you because they kind of know you already, or they feel like they do? And people that don't do a lot with social will say, well, you can't get comfortable with anybody off of social media. That's not real. I buy all that. But it's more real than have never talked to or seen the person ever in life, right?
Yep.
You have some idea of their personality and who they are and what they've been doing. So you can, and then like in my world, rather than, I used earlier, flying to Maine and spending $2,000 on flights and hotels and dinners and all that kind of stuff, to find out there's really zero opportunity, probably either because of one side or the other, right? We just don't fit. Let's at least cut that from maybe 50-50, whether it will or want to. There's probably an 80% chance this can be a customer of mine if it fits. And let's get some of the if it fits out of the way prior to spending $2,000 in 3 days of time, right? And that's one of the things that really convinced me of this hybrid style was during the pandemic thing. I'm heading out on a business trip this week, tomorrow. Part of that's a couple shows, so it's a little different. But if I'm on a business trip where I'm traveling, seeing customers only, I'm pretty organized and pretty good at what I do with that, with organizing trips. But that's 5 people I'll see in a day if it's a really good day.
Yep.
Or I can set in my office where I'm at now, or if it's outside, and communicate with 50. I mean, that's personally like this. And that some of that's no more than, like I said, pick up the phone, 37 seconds. Hey, Steve, just thinking about you. I know I sent you that proposal last week. You were going to talk to your partners. Just, I got all afternoon. If you're not busy, give me a buzz. Love to chat about, right? Whatever. Boom, sent. Took me 30 seconds on the way to the bathroom. right?
Yep.
So there's so many force multipliers there. And if the bottom line is we're going to find out early on that, you know what, Randy, I like you and the product looks good, but we talk some basic pricing, and I'm just not a quality guy. I sell in an area, and I got to be the cheapest, and and I know that's not you, and I know you made it clear that it's not going to be you. Okay, you're right. Then I didn't spend $2,000 in 3 days of my time to find that out, right?
Yep.
Let's find that out. That'd be like we talked about with a contractor. If you're selling roofs that average $55,000 a year, and you know that there's no possible way these people can spend more than $1,700, I know that's a little bit drastic, but you know what I'm saying.
Yep.
Why would you want to waste your time? You might help them find somebody that could, and I think that's a good thing to do. Just being a good ethical businessman, right? But you're not going to waste a lot of time going out there and quoting and hoping on something that's got zero possibility, right? So let's get to that. It's the old theory. You're going to get no's in life all the time, in business especially. The quicker you get to know, the better. Because you're going to get some. And if it's going to be no, let's get it early as opposed to wasting all that time to get to it. Because at the end of the day, you're still going to tell me no. Tell me now. If you just simply don't like my hair, and because of that, I will never buy from you. Dumb, but okay, fine, fair enough, right? I would rather you do that not after I've made 5 trips and spent $3,000. Say, you know, I'm never going to buy from you anyways because I don't like you. Okay. And I only buy from people I like, and there's no way I'm ever going to like you. Fair enough. Could have told me that like $3,000 ago. Would have been nice, right? But so that's I think we're social and can and it's not. And what I want to be clear is it's not. Never will I say just do all that stuff and get rid of all the old school way. Absolutely not. There still needs to be the coffee and donuts and talking to little Sammy that walks in the office when you're there that's 4 years old, right? There's seeing Steve's wife that you've known for the last 4 years that always comes in the office. There's a lot to be said for that. There's a lot to be said for meeting the employees and meeting the customers and being there. All I'm saying is that you can do a little less of that and you can do it more judiciously, and you can be spending some time doing other things that'll increase your opportunities for more business without having to tie up all your time and energy and money the old way. So it's a common, that's thus way circling back to an hour ago, the whole hybrid concept. It's not, we'll wait till we go back to the old way, or we're never going to go back to the old way. It's a combination of old and new put together. And I did a talk at some kind of a show a year ago, and one of the questions in the little Q&A was, how much time do you spend on virtual or social in a day? And I says it depends. I said when I'm on the road traveling, 50% at least. When I'm working from home, it's almost 100% virtual, right? I'm not there. By definition, it's all virtual, whether it's an email or a text. But I think a key to that, if anybody's thinking about doing it and being more active, the other thing is raw and organic's important. We talked about that. Consistency. You can't, Randy's opinion, and I got no letters after my name that says I'm right about this. I do have some letters, but they don't mean anything about that. But is that you throw out one post. Well, I put a post out. Oh, when? Well, I think I put a picture of a roof when? Oh, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago, probably 5. I don't know. Yeah. Well, yeah. See, I'm involved. I guess $1 better than 0. But if you need 50,000, that's probably not too close to what you need, right? So all I'm saying is that maybe that's better than nothing, but not by a lot. You got to be consistent. You've got to get that message in front of people, because here's the key with what you do with social, in my opinion. I'm not competing with other people that are in my industry. Of course, I am a little bit if they do it. The good news is not a lot of people do it. But who I'm competing against is every other person that puts anything out on social media. That's who I'm competing against. I need you to catch mine, and for whatever reason, you want to follow it or see what this guy's all about. And so if I put it out at 3 o'clock and I don't do anything for 4 days, and if I put it at 3 o'clock p.m., by 3:05 p.m., you've probably got 475 more things in your feed, right?
Yep.
Unless you're just crazy, got nothing else to do, you probably didn't go back that far. I don't. If I jump on, I'll scroll back 50, 60, 70 just to see what was there. And then I bore with that and I'm done, right? So if you put something out, now, if you, again, that's for new people, right? Most people understand this, but if somebody follows you, then you obviously will show up, right? But for new followers, new people that have never heard of you, if they're not a follower yet and you miss that 5-minute window that they happen to look, they might never see you again, especially if you wait 5 weeks to do it again. So that's why, and the last thing I'll say about that is to mix it up. Don't use several platforms. And I do a lot more now than I used to with TikTok and Facebook, real short, quick ones, because some people just want to go there. They want something quick, boom, out. Yeah, that was cool. That was interesting. That was funny. That was stupid. That was whatever. They want to move on. But I also, as a B2B guy, my best network or best platform is LinkedIn by far. But the reason that I use a lot of these other platforms as well as a lot of people that are still my age group or, let's say 40-ish or above, decision makers now, will go to some of the other platforms. So if you happen to miss something I did on LinkedIn, maybe you catch it over on Facebook or on a Facebook reel or a TikTok or a thread or someplace, right? Or X, wherever. But secondarily, why I do things like TikTok, for example, because I used to think it was the same thing a lot of people think. You're dancing with goats and being stupid. I've never danced with a goat. But the 20-somethings, early 30-somethings that are going to be that decision maker sometime in the next few years, I want to know them and I want them to know me now. So when it comes time that they're going to become a buyer that could actually deal with this old dude, Randy, they're saying, number one, this guy's been around a while. He kind of knows what he's doing. And he's kind of fun. He's sort of current and kind of hip. He's on TikTok. I mean, he's kind of cool, right? Because you have to go where your potential customer lives. You can't expect that they're going to come find you. If you're 22 years old, an up-and-comer, young guy or young gal, going to be a buyer in 3 years at this company, right? You're on the path. You're still probably not going to LinkedIn maybe right now to find this old dude, right? You may if you're an up-and-comer, but I know where you're going to be every day. You're going to be on LinkedIn and Facebook Reels and in any of these other places, right? So I need to go where you live. And so that's a lot of why I mix platforms, is that you either get, because we talked about earlier, if I put out 5 posts, that's 5 opportunities. But what if I put that 5 posts on 5 different platforms? I've just astronomically accelerated the possibility you're going to see me somewhere, right? And Absolutely. It don't cost any more to do it. It takes 5 more minutes to put it into 5 different places. So anyways.
Randy, I appreciate all your insights. We're running out of time here.
We went a long time.
But I was just wondering if one of the things I like to ask my guests is if you have a book or podcast or YouTube channel to recommend for the audience to check out, and it doesn't have to be genre specific. Is there a recommendation that you have?
I do. Thank you for asking. There's a couple of podcasts I really enjoy. Your Partner in Success Radio podcast with Denise Griffiths, and she's had Ben Gay III on as a regular host. recently. They're on once a week. Very, very good. And the other one is with Gary Bontrager and Heather Molyneux, I think is the way she says her name. It's a French name. Mindset Growth is also a very, very good one. Very leadership oriented. Those are two very good. And books, I talk about Ben Gay III. He's become a great mentor and friend of mine. He's wrote the largest book selling series ever, the Closure series. Incredibly good stuff. I read a lot, as you see. I'll throw up two more. Your leadership legacy with Oak McCullogh. Oak's a former, there you go, former lieutenant colonel with the Army's first Cav. Talks a lot about leadership and that kind of thing. And I'll tell you another guy I've become close with. It's a great guy. Moments Matter with Dave Sanderson. Dave's a speaker, writer, all around great guy. He became thrust into world renown when the U.S. Air flight went into the Hudson River in New York about 15 years ago. He was the last man off the plane with Sully. He stayed on the plane, even though he's by an exit, made sure that everybody got out because he realized that he was going down and we're not going to make it. You don't make it in the water in a plane like that. That's just, it's over. But they did. And he says, I could not live with myself right without doing what's right. And so in the waist deep water, making sure people got out, and so he has Katie Couric and people around his bed, right? I mean, he became thrust into that limelight. But he wrote this book, Moments Matter, which is really, really good, talking about, and what I was impressed with him on that one, and I think anybody that reads it, you all hope you would step up whenever you got thrust into something at a moment's notice. This whole thing happened 30 seconds into the flight. It's not like he had time to think about this. I think this flight's going to go down and get hit by birds. I'm going to put a plan together. No, it was in the water. I think it was like 4 minutes after the bird strike or something silly. So Moments Matter, and it's a great book. So I got tons more here I'd love to read. I think it's important. So, but those are just three and a couple podcasts that I find really important. And of course, yours.
I appreciate that, Randy. Lastly, where can the audience connect with you, or how can they reach you?
You can always go to my website, which is very easy to understand. I buy from Randy.com because, well, why wouldn't you, right? Yes. Secondarily, you'll find me on all the social media platforms. This under my name. I use some different tags at different ones, but YouTube, LinkedIn, Thread, Facebook Reels, TikTok. If you type in Randy Chaffee, you'll find me. I'd love to have people follow me. I love to engage. Anybody that's serious and wants to engage, I'm a big engager. I'm a big networker. I will accept and I will engage with you if you want to, as long as you're not somebody that's just trolling for numbers or other weird stuff. But because weird stuff, you get gone real quick. But if you're real legit and want to chat and want to develop a relationship, I'm all about the one of the greatest benefits of this whole more networking that I've done in the last few years that I found, my parting words, unless you want more, is the more networking you do within the industry is huge, right? But we all develop an industry think and an industry speak, right? To some degree. Some of the best people that I've communicated with and learned the most from are completely out of my industry because they're still smart. They're smart. They're good at what they do, but they come from a mindset that's totally different than the mind speak that everybody that does what I do has. Let's face it, if we're in the roofing world, there's a certain way that we think about stuff, but maybe a lot of it's good and we learn from each other. But I learned so much from, had dinner with him, lunch with him a couple of weeks ago, Lieutenant Colonel Oak McCullogh. Has nothing to do with my industry whatsoever. I've probably learned more from this man in the last 6 months than probably a lot of other people combined in a lifetime. So get out of your comfort zone, get out of your small little pigeonhole of who you know, and meet new people. It's huge.
Yeah, the shared experiences, you can kind of pull from each other's
Exactly.
energies and mindsets, which is amazing.
Exactly.
Well, Randy,
Cool.
thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. And, you know, we went through some technical difficulties there, but, you know, like
Hey.
a champion, you stuck it through. So I really appreciate it.
Hey, it's what happens.
Yeah.
Not
And,
a biggie. Appreciate you having me on, my friend, very much.
All right. We will talk soon here.
All right. Cheers.
Well, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Promo Minds podcast. I'm your host, Steve Leslie. And one thing that I learned, and I guess something that became more aware of with this conversation with Randy, was the fact that the social media presence and your posts and how you show up virtually is just as, if not more important, how you show up in reality, I guess, in the outside world. And the reason when it relates to your business and you know, if you're in a sales role, is because you're putting out an online resume, so to speak. So that's why it's very important never to go on rants, right, and just slander people, but to show up respectful and, you know, share your opinion, share your insights. And the more you do that, the more opportunities people have to find you and to see you and to learn more about you. And it's almost like you're putting yourself on display so that people can people have a sense of who you are, right? They have an opportunity in their own on their own time, in their own space, to go and check you out and say, you know, do I even want to talk to this person on the phone? Do I even want to reach out to this company? What are they about? What are they saying? Are they do they have some similar interests in me? Randy mentioned that his Lions won last night, and so instantly anyone who's a Detroit Lions fan is probably like, that's my guy. That's my guy. Gotta check this guy out. But yeah, so it was a very fun conversation, and really appreciate Randy coming on. And hopefully the technical difficulties that we endured there doesn't mess up the podcast too much. But you know what? You just go with the flow. So thanks again. And until next time, take care. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Promo Minds podcast. I'm Steve Leslie. And if you want help crafting your message or sharing your story, feel free to reach out. I'd love to help. Love coming up with ideas, and you know, we can have a nice chat. So reach out to promominds@gmail.com and I'll respond. Take care.